وخير الزرع تجنيه اليدين، هويتنا تبينها قيمنا ورثناها على مر السنين. أنا مسلم ولي عزة بديني وخير الزرع تجنيه اليدين.
أمر صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان ولي عهد أبو ظبي نائب القائد الأعلى للقوات المسلحة بتشييد بيت العائلة الإبراهيمية في أبو ظبي، وذلك تخليدا لذكرى الزيارة التاريخية المشتركة للبابا فرانسيس وفضيلة الإمام أحمد الطيب، وتعبيرا عن حالة التعايش السلمي وواقع التآخي الإنساني الذي يعيشه مجتمع دولة الإمارات.
بيت الإبراهيمي باختصار هو عبارة عن حي مصخر ويحتوي على مسجد وكنيسة وكنيس. مسجد لعبادة المسلمين، كنيسة لعبادة الإخوة المسيحيين، وكنيس اللي هو معبد الإخوة اليهود. ما في أي معابد ثانية في البيت الإبراهيمي، هم 3 معابد أساسية. وسمي بالبيت الإبراهيمي أي البيت الذي يجمع أتباع الديانات التي تأتي من أصل واحد وهو إبراهيم. احنا كلنا نعود لأبونا إبراهيم عليه السلام، وأتوقع لو أبونا إبراهيم نظر من السماء إلى الأرض لا يريد لأبنائه على اختلاف مللهم وهم الآن بعدد النجوم أن يتقاتلوا ويتناحروا. وفي الأخير الناس بعد ما تخرج من دور العبادة ممكن تلتقي وتتكلم وتتعارف أكثر. أنا أعتقد البيت الإبراهيمي هو أعظم تحقيق للآية الكريمة: خلقناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا.
أنت الولاء والبراء كذبة أضحوك تضحكون بها على السذج. الولاء والبراء فقط في حال العداء والحرب اللي يحاربني، يوادون من حاد الله ورسوله فقط. في السلم كلنا اخوان.
ورثناها على مر السنين.
Before we speak about the ruling on the Abrahamic family house, one needs to know its foundation. Once you know the foundation, you know the ruling. Religions and faiths and even gangs and various ideologies, they all establish places to congregate or worship. Hindus have temples, Buddhists have monasteries or temples, Christians worship in churches, Jews worship in synagogues. The Tawaghit in the UAE are constructing, or they probably completed, the Abrahamic house, which includes what they call a masjid, Imam al-Tayyib Masjid. And it's a place of worship for people who embrace and follow the newly founded man-made cocktail religion that they call the Abrahamic religion. And that's the simplest way to put it. Muslims worship in masajid founded on Tawheed. Muslims establish their masajid on taqwa of Allah, on piety to Allah and His pleasure. Muslims don't establish places of worship on brinks of crumbling banks. Islam is free from them and what they intend to promote, even if they label part of that doomed structure as a masjid. The foundation of that structure is not Tawheed, it's the Abrahamic religion, and it's nothing more than interfaith in a different mask. I spoke extensively about interfaith in the past 20 years or so. Some of it is in the Tawheed series, and even before that and after that, because I think it's among the biggest dangers of our time. And my father has lectures probably still available on cassette tapes that date back to the 1980s, where he warned about interfaith. And he specifically said that their plan is to build churches, masjids, and synagogues together and print Qur'ans, Torah, and Injils together. And we see the reality of that today. They use glamorous terms derived from the name of our beloved Ibrahim alayhi salam: Abrahamic religion, Abrahamic family house, Abrahamic accord. The origin of the term is glamorous because it's derived from our beloved prophet's name. But they use it like sweet honey to cover poison. They use it to hide and disguise the ugly face of the kufr of interfaith, and they're surrendering to the Zionist and to the kuffar. The Abrahamic family house and the masjid that's part of it is a veil to carry out and put into practice the man-made kufr religion of interfaith and Abrahamism. What do you expect? For years and years, they prepped the ummah with the munafiqeen and zanadiqa who frequently use interfaith, Abrahamism, and other terms associated with them, repeating and echoing these terms with their principles and slogans over and over, and with the majority of the ulama going along with it in approval, or just going with the flow, or others being silent. It paved the way to take the next step and put this religion into practice. They silenced and imprisoned and slandered and alienated the few people who are on the haqq who spoke against interfaith. And they paved the path for the murji and moderates and munafiqeen to spread their filth. So evil was nourished. The consequences, the ignorant people, the laymen, those astray, the majority saw the evil as truth and the truth as evil. And they thought what was widespread is the haqq. Because now they say mainstream Muslim or mainstream Shaykh, you have to have interfaith in order to be mainstream. Going against the Abrahamic faith and interfaith makes one an outcast and a stranger. And that's where you want to be in this day and age. In the past, when I was younger, I was a child, the enemies of Islam were pushing secularism and communism and nationalism and their likes to infiltrate the minds of the Muslim and to strip them out of their deen, and they were successful to a certain degree. Nationalism and secularism and its sister likes were ideologies that were dominating the Muslim minds, and you still see their effect till today. Some groups, for example, some were in Palestine attempting to liberate Palestine and dying under the Marxism and Leninism theories and ideologies. Some supposed Muslims back then were growing their beards to look like Karl Marx and Fidel Castro. Others were promoting the kufr of the Ba'ath and Arabic nationalism, the ideology of Michel Aflaq and his likes. And when Muslims began to fade away from that filth and turn to Islam, the enemies of Allah began to pump life into interfaith in order to strip Muslims out of their deen in Tawheed. Interfaith itself probably dates back to the 4th Hijri century. Most likely when Ikhwan as-Safa called for interfaith by attempting to combine between as-Sabi'a and al-Hanifiyya. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala said they combined between a lot of kufr and a lot of ignorance. The call has been renewed over the centuries by various religions, groups, organizations, governments, financial entities, and others who want to destroy Islam. The more recent interfaith revival took place probably in the 90s when it was pushed by the US government. The new veil for it, the new term for it, the new mask for it is the Abrahamic term. And that term, the usage of that term, probably dates back to the 1800s, the way they use it. Some writers and professors of Aqeedah in Palestinian universities, who I read for, and some books like a book I read, Al-Diplomasiyya Al-Ruhiyya, and some Arabic think tanks attribute the origin of the Abrahamic religion or the idea to an individual named Sayyid Nusayr, who I met while I was in prison. He had a case that I followed closely when I was in my late teens, which was my early years in the University of Medina. He was accused, or he actually did, kill a rabbi terrorist, and he was also associated with Sheikh Umar Abdurrahman rahimahullah ta'ala, before openly distancing himself from him later on. When I was in prison, I was eager to meet him, and I mentioned that in a gathering. And I told the brothers we should request for him to come to the prison where we're at, since the majority of the prisoners at that prison were Muslims, and they were Muslims with what they refer to as terrorist cases. And a brother who's doing a life sentence, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure him and free him, he had some mental struggles, and he had met Sayyid Nusayr in a previous prison, he said, you're going to regret that. Several months before I was released, they transferred him to the prison I was in, and it was what they refer to as the Guantanamo North or the CMU. And when he arrived, they placed him in the cell right next to my cell, right to the left of me. And we had several discussions, and we talked, and he showed me a lot of documents and letters, and he proposed something to several people, which he called Dawlat Ibrahim al-Federaliyah. I'm not sure how that's translated, but it's something like he proposed the federal state of Ibrahim for the Jews, Christians, and Muslims. He sent a proposal to George Bush and Hillary Clinton and Dick Cheney and others, if I remember correctly, and it was a proposal on a peace in the Middle East. He showed me some responses he got, and one was either from Hillary Clinton or Dick Cheney. And those who think that he's effective in this matter base it on that response that he got either from Dick Cheney or Hillary Clinton, or based on his talk to the media, because he's open about this. And the response was most likely a generic response that politicians send to anyone who corresponds with them. They send it regardless of the content of what's sent to them. Sometimes, in fact, most of the times they don't even bother to read what's sent to them. And I avoid and very much hate mentioning anything negative about those incarcerated who we disagree with, especially Sayyid Nusayr, since I left and we were in very good terms, and he respected me tremendously and wrote me several times after my release, because we're not animalistic like the Murji and modernists who wait for a person to fall in a bad predicament or go to prison or be silenced and he can't defend himself, and then they end up stabbing him and blasting him and gloating over his trials and hardships. But sometimes it's essential to clear matters up in a very respectable way and in a very limited way, while asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide them. What I wanted to correct, and the reason I mentioned this, is that he's mentioned as someone who began this matter or influenced it, or originated it, but that's not true. The Abrahamic religion or call or concept is much bigger than him, and it started before him. And the only effect he got out of promoting it is possibly the sins that he accumulated. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide him. The Abrahamic slogan is usually revived every time they sign one of the defeatist, demoralizing treaties and accords with the Zionists. The term they use, the Abrahamic term they use, like I said, is derived from the name of our beloved Ibrahim alayhi salam, the one-man nation of Millat Ibrahim Hanifa, the pure Tawheed, the pure Islam, the destroyer of shirk and statues. That Abrahamic term is to cover, the Abrahamic term they use is to cover the poison of kufr and interfaith. It's used to dismantle the layers of wala and bara and tawheed. It's used to cover the dishonor and shame of surrendering to the kuffar, to the Yahud and Zionists. It's used in the exact opposite way of what Ibrahim alayhi salam was upon. If any realistic person understood what Ibrahim alayhi salam stood for, as the Quran mentions, he would know it's us, the pure muwahhideen, who are the followers of Ibrahim alayhi salam. If you're against interfaith and the Abrahamism, and you hate it, and you hate those who call for it, then you're the true follower of Ibrahim alayhi salam, not the opposite. The people who stress wala and bara are the followers of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The people who love and hate for the sake of Allah are the true followers of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The people who don't diminish the differences between us, the Christians and the Jews and other religions, rather they outline those differences and highlight them and emphasize them and stress them and make the ummah aware of them. Those are the true followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ibrahim alayhi salam and the other messengers and prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the clearest terms tells us who the real followers of Ibrahim alayhi salam are. إن أولى الناس بإبراهيم للذين اتبعوه وهذا النبي والذين آمنوا والله ولي المؤمنين. Who's the most deserving of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Those who have the best claim to Ibrahim are للذين اتبعوه, his followers, وهذا النبي, and the followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the believers. The believers in what? The believers in Islam. The Hanifiyya, the Millah of Ibrahim, was repeatedly mentioned in the Quran in many ayat, attached with the name of Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَمَنْ يَرْغَبُ عَنْ مِلَّةِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِلَّا مَنْ سَفِهَ نَفْسَهُ. In another verse, وقالوا كونوا هودا أو نصارى تهتدوا قل بل ملة إبراهيم حنيفة وما كان من المشركين. In another verse, قل صدق الله فاتبعوا ملة إبراهيم حنيفة وما كان من المشركين. In another verse, ومن أحسن دينا ممن أسلم وجهه لله وهو محسن واتبع ملة إبراهيم حنيفة واتخذ الله إبراهيم خليلا. قل إنني هداني ربي إلى صراط مستقيم دينا قيما ملة إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين ثم أوحينا إليك أن اتبع ملة إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين. حنف, الحنف في اللغة هو الميل. حنف linguistically, that's mentioned as a characteristic of Ibrahim alayhi salam, it means to turn away. The followers of the Kufr of interfaith and Abrahamism, the new religion they founded, got their compass leading them in the wrong direction. Hanf is turning away. It's inclination in turning away from Kufr, from the Kufr of interfaith, from the Kufr of the Abrahamic religion, and inclining and turning towards pure Tawheed and Islam. It's actually turning away from all that filth in Kufr and turning purely to the pure Tawheed that we've been calling for. Nearly every definition you look at pertaining to the Abrahamic term, whether you look at the Collins Dictionary or the Oxford Dictionary or the Cambridge or Wikipedia or articles or what the Zanadiqa say, they attribute Ibrahim alayhi salam to Christianity and Judaism. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us something different. You either follow Allah's words or you follow the kufr of interfaith in that new religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ما كان إبراهيم يهوديا ولا نصرانيا ولكن كان حنيفا مسلما وما كان من المشركين. You either accept the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala denouncing the Abrahamic religion and how it's used, along with interfaith altogether, or you jump in the camp of the Zanadiqa and Kuffar. ما كان إبراهيم يهوديا ولا نصرانيا. What was he? ولكن كان حنيفا مسلما. How much clearer can that get? They manipulated the term so much that now it's used on pulpits, on manabir of masajid, and in durus, in khutab, in reference to Christianity and Judaism. When someone argues with you on the usage of that term, the way they use it, in the context of the kufr that they use it, that Ibrahim alayhi salam is the father of Christianity and Judaism, ask them what Allah said to ask them about this precise matter. Ask them if they know more than Allah. أَمْ تَقُولُونَ إِنَّ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ وإسحاق ويعقوب والأسباط كانوا هودا أو نصارى قل أأنتم أعلم أم الله. You claim that Ibrahim, not only Ibrahim, وإسماعيل وإسحاق ويعقوب والأسباط, the 12 sons of Yaqub, you claim they're Jews or Christians? قُلْ أَأَنْتُمْ أَعْلَمُ أَمِ اللَّهِ. Who's more knowledgeable? You or Allah? Who knows better? You or Allah? They were all Muslim. قل أأنتم أعلم أم الله. When Jews and Christians made a similar allegation in the past, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَقَالُوا كُونُوا هُودًا أَوْ نَصَارَى تَهْتَدُوا قُلْ بَلْ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Allah told us to do what the muwahhideen believe and do. Don't follow Judaism or Christianity. بَلْ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا. Follow the millah of Ibrahim Hanifa. And it wasn't just Ibrahim alayhi salam, but every messenger. Nuh was Muslim and ordered to be Muslim. فَإِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ فَمَا سَأَلْتُكُم مِّنْ أَجْرٍ إِنْ أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ وَأُمِرْتُ أَنْ أَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Ibrahim and his children, Yaqub and his children. وَوَصَّى بِهَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ بَنِيهِ وَيَعْقُوبُ يَا بَنِيَّ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى لَكُمُ الدِّينَ فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Yaqub, advising his children on his deathbed, told them to be Muslim and asked them, أَمْ كُنْتُمْ شُهَدَاءَ إِذْ حَضَرَ يَعْقُوبَ الْمَوْتِ إذ قال لبنيه ما تعبدون من بعدي قالوا نعبد إلهك وإله آبائك إبراهيم وإسماعيل وإسحاق إلها واحدا ونحن له مسلمون. Yaqub on his deathbed advised and asked his children what they'll worship after he dies. They said, we'll continue on the path that you're on, worshiping your ilah and the ilah of your fathers Ibrahim wa Ismail wa Ishaq. إله واحدة. And what are we? What are they? وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ. It's only one path. It's Islam. قُولُوا آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْنَا وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ وَالْأَسْبَاطِ وَمَا أُوتِيَ مُوسَى وَعِيسَى وَمَا أُوتِيَ النَّبِيُّونَ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ لا نفرق بين أحد منهم ونحن له مسلمون ونحن له مسلمون. They're ordered to say, وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ, we're Muslimun. Then Allah says, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. If you believe what they believed, then you're guided. What is it they believed? Right before it, وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. Another verse where Ibrahim alayhi salam and his sons said their deen was Islam, and reiterated that, is when they made dua, and most likely that dua was after they completed the building of the Kaaba. رَبَّنَا وَجْعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ لَكَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. ربنا وابعث فيهم رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياتك ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة ويزكيهم إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. ومن يرغب عن ملة إبراهيم إلا من سفه نفسه ولقد اصطفيناه في الدنيا وإنه في الآخرة لمن الصالحين إذ قال له ربه أسلم قال أسلمت لرب العالمين. Verse after verse that reiterate in the clearest and strongest terms that the messengers and prophets were Muslim. They combine with the Abrahamic term other terms like peace, coexistence, love, harmony, manners, justice, tolerance, freedom. Some of them include the treatment of the Muslims to Ahl al-Dhimma, and they're used as a flavor to add to that sour, false religion to fool the ignorant layman about the reality of that fake religion. They use those terms as a bridge to cross the layman into the Jahannam of interfaith. In their definition of, for example, tolerance and its synonyms, their definition is to tolerate every abuse of Allah, every kufr that exists, every slander and curse against the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, every imaginable ideology, every religion except the pure Tawheed. There's no justice that can remotely compare to the justice of Islam. Let's make that clear. There's no justice that can compare to how the Jews and Christians were treated, as was exemplified during Umar radiallahu anhu's time at that land. Umar radiallahu anhu was the leader of the world. He controlled nearly 2/3 of the world, including Palestine. And he implemented the text and justice that he learned from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam firsthand. It became a reality on the ground in dealing with the non-Muslims under his rule. And there can never be peace, no justice in that region or elsewhere, except when we go back to the Tawheed in Sharia that Umar radiallahu anh enforced. Yes, there's a hadith in Sahih Bukhari. من قتل نفسا معاهدا لم يرح رائحة الجنة. Whoever kills a mu'ahad, who's a non-Muslim, under the Muslim rule, who's granted a pledge of protection by the Muslims, whoever kills him, he will not smell the fragrance of Jannah. The Abrahamic religion is so warped that some of them mention how Islam taught us to justly treat Ahl al-Dhimma, and they use it to back their call for interfaith and Abrahamism. While others want to abolish that section out of history and out of Islam altogether. Yes, Islam gave the most just rules and rulings on dealing with Ahl al-Dhimma. Islam taught the globe peace, kindness, justice, and the similar terms they tagged to their interfaith and Abrahamism. But that has absolutely nothing to do with interfaith. It has nothing to do with the principles and ideology of interfaith and the Abrahamic religion and what it's founded on. And I made this point very clear many times, and more recently in the Ramadan series. They use those terms as an overpass to trap the ignorant into interfaith. They want to make you think that everyone who resists and opposes interfaith and Abrahamism is a person who holds a combination to a nuclear bomb waiting to destroy the earth and what's in it. And that he wants to oppress every human on the face of this earth and annihilate them. The reason is because that's the reality of what they do when they're in control. When they're under our rule, we don't unjustly imprison them and scrutinize them and harass them to the point where they can't leave or earn a living, and surveil them and raid their houses every other day. In fact, when the sane of them lived under our rule, the rule of the Sharia of Allah, they didn't want to live elsewhere. Umar radiallahu anh didn't need Abrahamism or interfaith to rule Palestine back then, and it's definitely not needed today. Those terms, like the Abrahamic term, and the terms they use around them, they're not innocently chosen by the tawaghit and murtaddeen and kufara and zanadiqa. They come after long, careful, calculated studies. They chose those terms because they want to give interfaith and Abrahamism a glamorous, attractive appeal for the ignorant, the ones who don't know their tawheed. They choose what they think will appear to the fools as bright or merciful, slowly stripping them out of their identities without perceiving it. They sprinkle kufr with glitter to fool and deceive the ignorant masses. The Abrahamic religion and the terms they selected to surround it serve nothing more than to mislead the ummah and spread the darkness of kufr and what the Zionists in the United States and kuffar in general want you to worship, not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants for you. Adherents to the Abrahamic religion interfaith are slaves of the American Zionist hegemony. It's following the tawaghit, the little shayateen in the east, like the UAE, who are doing the dirty work for the Zionists. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu la tattabi'u khutuwat ash-shaytan. It's a call to spoil Islam in the hearts of the Muslim. It's a call to diminish the pride of Muslims in Islam. It's a call to diminish the value of Islam in the hearts of the Muslims. It's a call to diminish the magnitude of leaving Islam. That's why they have an issue with the punishment of ridda. When you diminish the differences between the religions in direct opposition of the methodology of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the specific matter, and you believe all religions are correct and acceptable, then why not prance around the religions? The Abrahamic call and what it entails exploits Islam with an agenda so humiliating, so deceitful, so surrenderous that even the Imam of Al-Azhar, as moderate as he is, and a caller to interfaith, rejected it. He's someone who initially went along with the UAE madhab of interfaith, but later saw that that was too low for his low status, and he denounced it and called it a pipe dream. When a yielder like the Imam of Al-Azhar thinks the UAE has gone too far in their Abrahamic faith yielding, nothing further needs to be said. The only people who see the true full danger of interfaith and Abrahamism and how it spreads kufr by the UAE are the ones who value and know tawheed. When I spoke about schools in the West as it pertains to the children, I said parents never saw the danger of schools on their children's tawheed until the schools began to push the despicable, disgusting fahisha of Qawm Lut. But before that, it was a danger to the children's tawheed. And after that, and during that, it's still a danger to the children's tawheed. Abrahamism is an enemy to the core of Islam, tawheed. That's enough for those who appreciate and know tawheed. Abrahamism is a deceit and exploitation of Islam. It's a melting pot of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and whatever else they can blend in that pot to produce a new cocktail religion that fragments what little is left of wala and bara in the hearts of the ummah. Just like they didn't take the danger of schools and their children's tawheed seriously, the same applies here. They may not take interfaith and Abrahamism, its danger to tawheed seriously, but they do take it seriously to matters they're sympathetic to. So Abrahamism is also a danger to many Islamic causes, like the Islamic cause of Palestine. The danger of Abrahamism to the Islamic cause in Palestine is clear when you notice that the call to the Abrahamic religion is revived at nearly every peace treaty they sign. So in addition to fragmenting the pure tawheed in the hearts of the ummah, it aims to liquidate the Islamic cause of liberating every millimeter of Palestine, or even a portion of it. It aims to drop the curtain on the Jewish occupation of Palestine and to normalize the loss of the lands, the loss of the honor, the loss of the rights, the loss of the lives of the Muslims in Palestine and elsewhere. The UAE, through the Abrahamic religion, and everyone who walks in that path, aim to normalize and integrate the Zionists in Palestine and to affirm those occupiers as legitimate citizens of Palestine, to distort awareness and help to the oppressed Muslims in Palestine, and to distort the history of Palestine. The inconsistent, hypocritical, wailing dogs, those shuyukh and dua, who speak about the Palestinian cause to gain fame and popularity, because it's a cause that people are sympathetic to. They talk about the Palestinian cause, and then they call for interfaith or Abrahamism. How hypocritical is that? Abrahamism criminalizes the Muslim muwahhid, raising the banner of Tawheed, trying to regain his land. Abrahamism makes the one seeking Allah's word supreme on the lands irrigated by the blood and sweat of the Sahaba and enemy, and that Zionist occupier is the brother. Abrahamism even criminalizes the deviant nationalists who try to ask for their rights or fight for it. When Anwar al-Sadat signed the peace treaty in 1979, before most of you were probably born, he called for the exact same kufr that the UAE is doing today. He came back talking about building an interfaith compound, masjid, church, synagogue in Wadi al-Raha and Sinai. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cleansed the earth from him before he was able to complete it. Sheikh Abu Zaid mentioned in his book, and like I said, my father talked about it back then. The UAE came back from their sujood to the Zionists talking about the exact same thing in the island of As-Sa'diyat in Abu Dhabi. Nearly every time there's a surrenderist, demoralizing treaty between the Zionists and their awliya, the Abrahamic term and its principles and the principles of interfaith are brought up, and it pops up one way or another. From the time of Anwar al-Sadat until today, Carter called for that in his peace treaty with al-Sadat. Trump used the same term, the Abraham Accord. In 1993, when Arafat signed a peace treaty, the same call was echoed again. Isn't it a funny coincidence that every time a Taghut jumps in the laps of the Zionists, he comes back inspired with interfaith and Abrahamism? When you study and analyze the Abrahamic religion, you'll see that that religion has two main madhabs. The first madhab is the madhab that calls to unify and reconcile and consolidate and combine and bring together Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They want to approve all religions, of course, but the focus is more on the three religions. And they consider them all acceptable and correct. They want to drop the essential differences, what they see as essential differences, and unify the religions on what they think is common grounds. And that's kufr in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wal-'iyadu billah. We Muslims are distinct and supreme. We don't show off with our wealth, with our looks, with our backgrounds, our education, our jobs, or any dunya matters. But we do show off with our deen, because we have pride and izzah in our deen. Not only must you have pride in Islam, but you must believe Islam is supreme, not equal. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. Do the people of interfaith believe and say that? That we must be distinct and supreme? And around, do the people of interfaith believe that in around 100 authentic ahadith, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam guided us to be different from the various fractions of kuffar in different aspects? The followers of the Abrahamic faith want you to be like the kuffar. Who do you choose? Some heads of interfaith clearly said statements that all religions are correct. Believing other than Islam after the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is correct and acceptable is kufr, and whoever believes that is a kafir. We Muslims don't consolidate differences with any ideology or religion. We take the differences and highlight them and emphasize them and repeat them and reiterate them. They want to correct Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says be different. Abrahamism and interfaith say be alike. Who do you choose? Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala said the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam exaggerated, balagha, emphasized, ordering this ummah to be different than kuffar in many matters that are mubah, permissible, matters that are permissible. He said he wanted us to be different in matters that are mubah, permissible, so that it will not be means for following them in other more serious matters. The Abrahamic religion equates the kafir with a Muslim, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَفَنَجْعَلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ كَالْمُجْرِمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَمْ نَجْعَلُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ كَالْمُفْسِدِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَمْ نَجْعَلُ الْمُتَّقِينَ كَالْفُجَّارِ. The Abrahamic religion that's made by the kuffar wants you to grow nearer to Allah through any religion you feel you like. They're all equal. They're all correct. They're all valid. You pick and choose what suits you. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said only Islam is the truth. And the rest are doomed to hell. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ الدِّينَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الْإِسْلَامِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَفَغَيْرَ دِينِ اللَّهِ يَبْغُونَ وَلَهُ أَسْلَمَ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ طَوْعًا وَكَرْهًا وَإِلَيْهِ يُرْجَعُونَ. Whoever seeks other than Islam, it's rejected. Whoever seeks success with other than Islam will end up being a doomed loser. وَالَّذِي نَفْسُ مُحَمَّدٍ بِيَدِهِ لا يسمع بي أحد من هذه الأمة يهودي ولا نصراني ثم يموت ولم يؤمن بالذي أرسلت به إلا كان من أصحاب النار. Jews and Christians who hear about me, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and don't believe in what I was sent with, will be among the people of Jahannam. Can anyone go to gatherings and meetings of interfaith and Abrahamism and explain these verses in a hadith? When analyzing the Abrahamic religion and studying it from statements and releases by the enemies of Islam and those who promote it, you find a second madhab within that religion. Both are kufr. This one's more, the second madhab is more extreme in their kufr. In this madhab, they speak about canceling all three religions and rewriting a new religion derived from the teachings of the canceled religions. A religion where they focus on what they think is manners, love, humanity, human brotherhood, tolerance, kindness, peace. And as we mentioned, these terms are masks to pass their poison in kufr. Both of those madhab are falsely attributed to who? To Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the bottom line is, they want an Islam free from its reality and essence. An Islam free of its uniqueness and superiority and specialty. An Islam free from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated. This false religion attributed to Ibrahim alayhi salam and interfaith gets demolished by one verse from Asdaq al-Qa'ilin, from Allam al-Ghuyub. He knew there's going to be hypocrites and zanadiqa and apostates calling for this kufr. A direct response. وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Don't mix truth with falsehood. Don't mix truth with evil. Mujahid and Qatada said about this verse that this verse is saying don't mix Judaism and Christianity with Islam. And Qatada added, the deen of Allah is Islam. Judaism and Christianity are innovated not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Truth and evil can't be combined and equated. How can someone combine between the abuse of Allah and praise and glorification of Allah? A Muslim's call is to pure tawheed. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم ألا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا ولا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله فإن تولوا فقولوا اشهدوا بأننا مسلمون. كلمة سواء is not shirk. كلمة سواء is actually tawheed. Unlike what they use it for, because they use this to promote the interfaith. Kalima sawa is calling them to tawheed, and it's further emphasized and explained right after that. أَلَّا نَعْبُدَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَلَا نُشْرِكَ بِهِ شَيْئًا. That's the word we come to agreement with. That's the only word we can come to agreement with. Abrahamism is a call to destroy wala and bara. The Abrahamic religion wants your wala, your loyalty to the disbelievers, to the Zionists, to the US. They want your wala to the mass killers of your children globally and in Palestine particularly and elsewhere. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَوْ كَانُوا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالنَّبِيِّ وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِمَ اتَّخَذُوهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءَ. They believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messenger and what was revealed to him, they would not take them as awliya. I don't want to repeat what we spoke about over the years, but one may have a brother, a blood brother, who's a kafir, and he say he's my brother. But the true, ultimate brotherhood and sisterhood is that brotherhood and sisterhood of Iman, and it supersedes everything. They use verses like إِذْ قَالَ لَهُمْ أَخُوهُمْ نوح ألا تتقون إذ قال لهم أخوهم هود ألا تتقون إذ قال لهم أخوهم صالح ألا تتقون إذ قال لهم أخوهم لوط ألا تتقون. When mentioning the tribesmen of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah said their brother, أخوهم. It was in a tribal context. They were members of the tribe. That's like saying, he's my brother to your blood brother who's non-Muslim. And we explained that in the past. But those verses that they use to call the kafara as their brothers and establish wala based on that, those verses, in the context they use, are in reality a response to them. Because when Shu'aib alayhi salam was mentioned in the context of the disbelief of his people, Allah didn't refer to him as their brother. He said, كَذَّبَ أَصْحَابُ الْأَيْكَةِ الْمُرْسَلِينَ إِذْ قَالَ لَهُمْ شُعَيْبٌ إِذْ قَالَ لَهُمْ أَخُوهُمْ شُعَيْبٌ. There's no brother here. إِذْ قَالَ لَهُمْ شُعَيْبٌ أَلَا تَتَّقُونَ. Clear. The matters are very clear. إنما المؤمنون إخوة. إنما is أداة حصر. Only. And Shaykh Nasr al-Fahd, فك الله بالعز أسرى, wrote an entire book on this matter, which hasn't been released yet. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala release him and his work. A Muslim's wala is to Allah and His Messenger and the believers. إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَإِنَّ حِزْبَ اللَّهِ هُمُ الْغَالِبُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتُ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَتَّخِذُوا الْكَافِرِينَ أَوْلِيَاءَ مِنْ دُونِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَتَّخِذُوا الْيَهُودَ وَالنَّصَارَى أَوْلِيَاءَ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُمْ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Wala and bara entails rights over your Muslim brother and sister, wherever they are. Interfaith is to take out that principle, that concept of helping your Muslim brother and sister wherever they are. It's to take out aiding your brother and sister. It's to take out showing love and compassion and sympathy to the Muslims among each other, as if they're one body on Tawheed. They want to take it from a body founded and united on Tawheed to a body founded and united on Kufr and anything and everything but Tawheed. When they cut and sever and weaken this beautiful bond of brotherhood on Tawheed that we have, that's part of wala and bara, an essential part of wala and bara. It's a bond that we Muslims have that no one else has. What happens when they take that out? It weakens and destroys this ummah. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وأن يحب المرء لا يحبه إلا لله. To love a person and to love him only for the sake of Allah. And similar to it, ورجلان تحابا في الله اجتمعا عليه وتفرقا عليه. Both hadith are in Bukhari and Muslim. They want brotherhood founded on humanity, brothers in humanity. Or they want brotherhood founded on al-ikha ad-dini, brothers in faith. They don't mean Islamic faith, they mean any faith, brothers in any faith. Or based on the Abrahamic religion. They want brotherhood based on the Abrahamic religion. They attribute their religion to Ibrahim alayhi salam. And they refer to the kuffar as their brothers. Let's see what Ibrahim alayhi salam had to say about this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وما كان استغفار إبراهيم لأبيه إلا عن موعدة وعدها إياه فلما تبين له أنه عدو لله تبرأ به إن إبراهيم لأواه حليم. Ibrahim disowned his own father for his kufr. Ibrahim disowned all the disbelievers around him, both them individually and what they worshipped and their kufr. And he hated them. The biggest word the pro-interfaith and Abrahamic religion and sell-out Muslims hate is the term hate. And they say they're Abrahamic. Let's see what Ibrahim was quoted in the Quran as saying, in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to follow. قَدْ كَانَتْ لَكُمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ فِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ إِذْ قَالُوا لِقَوْمِهِمْ إِنَّا بُرَآءُ مِنْكُمْ ومما تعبدون من دون الله كفرنا بكم وبدا بيننا وبينكم العداوة والبغضاء أبدا حتى تؤمنوا بالله وحده. Ibrahim said to his people, we're free from you, whatever you worship beside Allah. Ibrahim said to the kuffar of his time, we reject you. Ibrahim told the kuffar of his time, hostility has started between us and you. Ibrahim alayhi salam told the kuffar, we hate you forever. Until when? Until you believe in Allah only. وَبَدَا بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمُ الْعَدَاوَةُ وَالْبَغْضَاءُ أَبَدًا حَتَّى تُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. That's the millah of Ibrahim. I challenge anyone of those pro-Abrahamic religion and interfaith to stand in one of their congregations and to recite and teach these verses of Wala and Bara that Ibrahim alayhi salam is quoted as saying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Nuh alayhi salam that his own son is not his family. He's unrighteous. قال يا نوح إنه ليس من أهلك إنه عمل غير صالح. The Abrahamic religion and interfaith is an attempt to destroy the principle of وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy them. It's to flip the mercy to the kafir and the harshness to the believer. محمد رسول الله والذين معه أشداء على الكفار رحماء بينهم. The Abrahamic religion and interfaith have their own salah and ibadat. I'm telling you, it's a religion. Making up ibadat like the unified prayers that they did. The verses and prayers like the one they call the global healing prayer. They have their own prayer. In 2021 in Iraq, they performed the Abrahamic Salah. They call it the Abrahamic Salah, made up Salah. The Salah of the sons of Ibrahim, with so-called Muslims, Jews, Christians, Yazidis, Sabi'a, and other religions. They performed the salah at the place where they allege that Ibrahim alayhi salam was born, in Iraq. One can only wonder what qibla such various religions chose, or what Lord they prayed to, or what movements they did. And it was reported as the first historic salah of such nature. But for those who study and know interfaith and its kufr, and have been analyzing it for years, they know that this happened many times before on various levels. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, اتبعوا ما أنزل إليكم من ربكم ولا تتبعوا من دونه أولياء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أم لهم شركاء شرعوا لهم من الدين ما لم يأذن به الله. We don't even allow minor innovations in this deen to allow something as big as that. من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس فيه فهو رد. There's so many other points, but briefly finishing off, let me mention a few more points. The Abrahamic religion is a call that directly and impliedly accuses Islam of being incomplete. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. This religion is complete. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً وَبُشْرَى لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ. The Abrahamic religion, Abrahamism and interfaith, is a call to halt the Sharia of Allah that's revealed to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam that we were ordered to implement and we were ordered to be governed by. ثم جعلناك على شريعة من الأمر فاتبعها ولا تتبع أهواء الذين لا يعلمون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وأن احكم بينهم بما أنزل الله ولا تتبع أهواءهم واحذرهم أن يفتنوك عن بعض ما أنزل الله إليك. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, واحذرهم أن يفتنوك عن بعض ما أنزل الله إليك فإن تولوا فاعلم أنما يريد الله أن يصيبهم ببعض ذنوبهم وإن كثيرا من الناس لفاسقون أفحكم الجاهلية يبغون ومن أحسن من الله حكما لقوم يوقنون. The foundation of that religion is what they think is the common denominator of all faiths. So what's special and unique in Islam is not to be taken. The most of the three religions to lose of its teachings based on what they're doing is the Muslims. Because Islam comes with every detail of a human's life. Details no other religion has. Other religions don't have guidance to teach and direct what's beneficial in every single aspect of every single person's life and life in general. They don't have what we have. Because Islam teaches everyone what's beneficial for their dunya and akhirah until Yawm al-Qiyamah. They diminished pride and izzah in this deen, in the hearts of the ummah, and that caused Muslims to jump in ruku' and sujood to their enemies and to give such concessions on the most valuable that they have, their faith. The Abrahamic call is an attempt to strip Islam from its uniqueness. It's the only religion whose book wasn't tampered. Abrahamism considers other religions' books that abuse Allah holy. It makes it seem as if their books are free from being tampered when they combine it with the Quran in the manner that they do. It's an attempt to raise the status of other books that are tampered and to give them the level of being sacred and holy and free from being tampered. It attempts to lower the status of the Quran that was promised to be protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the irony is that the US promotes this religion and interfaith, and the US is a secularist country that separates between church and state. But when it comes to matters in our countries, They know that the Muslims, generally speaking, are attached and sympathetic to their deen. So they made up a new deen to serve their interests and enslave the Muslims to them and to their causes. The Abrahamic religion negates the important concept and principle of ordaining the good and forbidding the evil, and da'wah in general, a faridah from Allah. It demolishes the inkar of the munkar on the highest level. How do you do inkar of munkar on shirk or give da'wah to Islam when all religions and everyone is correct and acceptable? And there's an important matter that needs to be mentioned with talking about interfaith and Abrahamism, which is that da'wah is not interfaith, and interfaith is not da'wah. I mentioned this in the past, and I'll mention it again because some allege that interfaith is da'wah. And they're deceivers or liars or ignorant. Among the ways to give da'wah is to give it in wisdom, in the best of terminology, and with the best of manners, but with no compromise. Look at the da'wah of every messenger. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتِ. Every messenger was sent to teach them to worship Allah alone and to stay away from the taghut, the false gods. There's no cocktail religion. There's no combining religions. There's no minimizing the differences. اجتنبوا الطاغوت أن اعبدوا الله واجتنبوا الطاغوت. In the other verse, اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره. The da'wah is worship Allah alone. Da'wah is not to combine or consolidate or unify religions. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent a letter of da'wah to Hiraqil. In Muhammad, Abdullahi wa Rasulih, ila Hiraqil azim al-Rum. Salamun ala man ittaba al-huda. Amma ba'd, fa inni ad'uka bid'ayat al-Islam. Peace be upon the one who follows the guidance. I call you to Islam. The Messenger's wording of the salam itself, the terms of the salam, opposes interfaith itself. Aslim taslam. يؤتك الله أجرك مرتين فإن توليت فإن عليك إثم الأريسيين. If you become Muslim, you'll be safe and you'll get your reward doubled. But if you turn away, then you'll have the sins of your followers and subjects. Then he mentioned the verse that they use it in the wrong way. قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم ألا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا. Come to common grounds. What's those common grounds? Those common grounds, كلمة سواء, is to meet on Tawheed. Tawheed of Allah, as I said. Da'wah is to convey the message, not to love those who Allah despises. Da'wah is to convey the message, not to praise and dignify ideologies and religions and books that abuse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Da'wah is not to consider other religions correct. Da'wah is not to compromise on the deen in attempt to give it a beautiful image, what you think is beautiful. Islam is beautiful as it is. It needs no updated, no completing, no beautification by anyone. It's beautiful as it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does interfaith in general in the Abrahamic religion believe in wala and bara, al-hub wal-bughd fillah? Now, this kufr has been pushed and promoted for years. And it's made somewhat of a norm. And that paved the path to put this kufr into actual practice. And among that is building the compound that they have built. That compound, including the masjid that they call Imam Al-Tayyib Masjid, is probably the most ideal example of our time of what would be referred to as Masjid of Dirar. What is Masjid of Dirar? Masjid al-Dirar. That masjid is a masjid that was burnt down and demolished by an order from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the 9th year after the Hijrah, a masjid was established by the Munafiqeen in collaboration with a man called Abu Amir al-Fasiq. And he was someone who embraced Christianity, became prominent from the tribe of Khazraj before the arrival of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina. You can imagine when one is on the verge of popularity and power, and then he loses all that at the arrival of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He left and sought refuge in the Romans and began to collaborate with the Munafiqeen in Medina. Abu Amir asked them to build a masjid as a base against Islam and against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he promised help from the Romans. He said the help is on its way. They're hypocrites, so they went to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They told them, we built a masjid, and that masjid is for those who are weak and ill, and for cold days when people can't attend with you, they'll pray in this masjid. We invite you to come make salah and make dua of blessings in it. That was an attempt to get the messenger to legitimize that masjid. The messenger was occupied because he was on his way to fight the Romans in Tabuk. He said, after I return, I'll visit the masjid. Right before he returned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the verses exposing them. وَالَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا مَسْجِدًا ضِرَارًا وَكُفْرًا وَتَفْرِيقًا بَيْنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَإِرْصَادًا لِمَنْ حَارَبَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ وَلَا يَحْلِفُنَّ إِنْ أَرَدْنَا إِلَّا الْحُسْنَى وَاللَّهُ يَشْهَدُ إِنَّهُمْ لَكَاذِبُونَ. They set up a masjid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, masjidan diraran, to cause harm. Wa kufran, to promote kufr, disbelief. Wa tafriqan bayna al-mu'minin, to divide the believers. Wa irsadan liman haraba Allah wa rasulah, and it's a base to fight Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for those who want to fight Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. وَإِرْصَادًا لِمَنْ حَارَبَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam then asked 4 of the Sahaba to go and demolish it, and they burned it down, and it was supposedly mentioned that that spot was turned into a trash yard. If you pay attention to the verse, it was 4 conditions for a masjid of dirar. Either one or all of them are sufficient to label a masjid of dirar and give it the ruling of a masjid of dirar. Especially when that masjid is founded from its origin for one of those reasons. One or all of those reasons are sufficient to consider that masjid a masjid of dirar. And if you paid attention in this very long introduction, you will see from what I already mentioned that every last characteristic or condition of a masjid of dirar applies to that doomed, cursed Abrahamic compound they're building in UAE. Masjidan diraran, dirar, to harm. The harm. The spread of Tawheed and the people of Haqq. We mentioned everything earlier, so there's no need to go over it again. They harm Tawheed, they harm Islam and Muslims and the Muslim causes, all the Muslim causes, like the Palestinian Islamic cause, among others. Masjidan diraran wa kufran wa tafriqan bayna al-mu'minin. Kufran, established on kufr and to spread kufr. Wa kufran wa tafriqan bayna al-mu'minin, to promote, to strengthen kufr and to fight Islam and Tawheed. وَكُفْرًا, the Abrahamic house and that masjid that's included as part of it was established on Kufr, on the Kufr of the Abrahamic religion. You have to be from a different planet not to see and realize that the UAE government in general, what they're doing in general, and their building of this particular house in particular, are nothing more than pushing Zionism onto Muslims and removing the pure Islam and its implementation. The third quality or characteristic or purpose of Masjid of Al-Dirar is تفريقا وكفرا وتفريقا بين المؤمنين وإرصادا لمن حارب الله ورسوله. وتفريقا بين المؤمنين is to cause division. They came with a new religion that they wanted to unite people on. A new religion, new ideology that counters and is against Islam. Unity is based only on Tawheed. If one person, assume one person is standing alone in this globe on pure Tawheed, and the entire globe is astray from Tawheed and Shirk and Kufr and is against him, that one person is the one calling for unity, and they're all a source of division. Unity on other than Tawheed is division, and it weakens and divides Muslims. Like I said earlier, their definition of unity is to unite with every secularist, apostate, kafir, munafiq, slanderer of the Sahaba, Rafidi, and abusers of the Sahaba, and everyone else except for the Muwahhideen. They want to unite with them all and to live with them all in peace and coexist with them all and to submit to them. But they want the pure Muwahhideen who are on the pure Tawheed, the pure Muslims, the pure Islam to be exterminated off the face of this earth. وَتَفْرِيقًا بَيْنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Does the verse say to cause division between humanity or between religions or between countries? No, because that's not what we unite on. Our unity is with the believers, wherever they are and wherever they may be. And our unity is on Tawheed. وَتَفْرِيقًا بَيْنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Division among the believers. And that doomed structure is established to divide between the mu'mineen. The fourth and final condition that's mentioned in the verses is وَإِرْصَادًا لِمَنْ حَارَبَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. It's an outpost or a base for those who want to fight against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. Abu Amir al-Fasiq, the one who pushed for the establishment of the Masjid of Dirar during the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was getting his orders from the Romans. And he promised help from the Romans. The Munafiqeen who built the first Masjid of Dirar play the exact role the UAE is playing in building that structure. Abu Amir took his orders and help from the Romans. The UAE, the Abu Amir of today, get their orders from the Zionists and the Americans. Identical to the first Masjid of Dirar. Masjid of Dirar during the Prophet ﷺ's time wanted to go back to Kufr and Jahiliyyah through that masjid. Exactly what the UAE is doing through that compound in the call for Abrahamism and interfaith. Both are structured as an outpost to fight Tawheed and raise a generation that fights Tawheed and the pure Muwahhideen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَفَمَنْ أَسَّسَ بُنْيَانَهُ عَلَى تَقْوَى مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرِضْوَانٍ خَيْرٌ أَمْ مَنْ أَسَّسَ بُنْيَانَهُ عَلَى شَفَا جُرُفٍ هَارٍ فَانْهَارَ بِهِ فِي نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ وَاللَّهُ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Recently, we mentioned in a fiqh class The ulama disputed if salah in a church is permissible. It's a legitimate dispute. And I believe, in summary, in a regular, normal church, it's not associated with interfaith, it's permissible. Salah in that doomed UAE compound, or the church, or the synagogue that's there, if you make salah in there, it gives the appearance that one approves interfaith. The purpose that it was established and structured for. And so salah there is not permissible. Nor should one step foot in there. That's the churches in the synagogue. The masjid itself falls under Masjid al-Dirar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Masjid al-Dirar, لا تقم فيه أبدا. Don't make salah in abada. Abada is assurance, ever, never. The ruling is that it's not permissible to make salah in that masjid. And when the righteous Muslims take that little province they call UAE and make it part of the righteous Khilafah, inshallah, the structure will be dealt with in accordance to what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam directed us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا يَحْلِفُنَّ إِنْ أَرَدْنَا إِلَّا الْحُسْنَى وَاللَّهُ يَشْهَدُ إِنَّهُمْ لَكَاذِبُونَ. Allah said, the ones who built the Masjid of Dirar, they'll definitely swear they intended nothing but good. In أَرَدْنَا إِلَّا الْحُسْنَى, like these ones there. Interfaith, we want good. Interfaith, Abrahamism, peace, coexistence. The whole world's going to get together. Tolerance, dialogue. Wallahu yashhadu innahum lakadhibun. Allah bears witness that they're surely liars. And lastly, what I read as proof from someone who wanted to justify this, who claims to be a sheikh, he used the story of Wafd Nasara Najran. When the Nasara came to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they supposedly made their salah in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's masjid. All what needs to be said about that is that it's related through three different narrations. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali said it's munqati' da'if la yuhtajju bimithli. It's too weak to be used as proof. And if they use that, let them use the other portion of that hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said they're liars. He called them liars for associating a partner to Allah. He said, كَذَبْتُمَا. He said, you're liars. And the Messenger ﷺ's business dealings with the Jews as they use it, or being kind, or giving da'wah to non-Muslim, none of that is proof for interfaith, as some have used it. We have addressed it in the past. And I recommend that you read a book by Sheikh Bakr Abu Zaid called Al-Ibtal لنظرية الخلط بين دين الإسلام وغيره من الأديان. And I would take a quote from there and mention it, but I want to mention a quote from Sheikh Nasir al-Fahd's Fatawa on interfaith. And it's a summary of everything I said. He was asked, ما حكم مركز حوار الأديان? What's the ruling on what it's referring to is King Abdullah's International Dialogue Center. He said, هذا مركز ملعون. This is a cursed center. ناقض لأصل دين الإسلام. It's a negator to the principles of this deen. هادم للولاء والبراء. Destroyer of wala and bara. مكذب للنصوص الآمرة بمعاداة الكفار والبراءة منهم. It rejects the proofs and orders that order us to have براءة from kuffar. And it's راد لنصوص الجهاد في سبيل الله. It rejects the proofs of jihad for the sake of Allah. محارب لله ولرسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. It's a war against Allah and His Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم. فكل من أسسه, everyone who founded it and established it, وشارك فيه, or participated in it, listen to this, أو رضي به, or accepts it, فهو كافر مرتد. فهو كافر مرتد. Whoever established it, whoever participates in it, whoever accepts it is a kafir murtad. عليه لعائن الله والملائكة والناس أجمعين. May Allah reward Sheikh Nasir. He said, on that person, whoever accepts it, whoever establishes it, or participates in it, or is pleased with it, is a kafir, murtad. May the curse of Allah and the malaika and the people be upon him. وَيَجِبُ التَّحْذِيرُ مِنْ. It's important to warn from that, from him, and from those who participate in it. وَمِنَ الْمُشَارِكِينَ فِيهِ بِكُلِّ وَسِيلَةٍ. In all means. فإن هؤلاء الطواغيت, these طواغيت, إنما يريدون سلامة سلطانهم ولو قذفوا الناس جميعا في جهنم. These طواغيت only want peace for their thrones. They want to remain in power, even if they toss everyone in Jahannam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them. I believe in every word that he said. Jazahullahu khaira. And this is talking about King Abdullah's International Dialogue Center. And what it spread is much less than what the UAE is doing with Abrahamism and interfaith.